What to do with competition. So let me introduce you to my world here in Southern California. Auto detailing is saturated. It is a saturated market. But with that, do not be discouraged. I don't know what part of the world you are viewing this, but think about how many people own cars. California, and Southern California specifically, is car capital of the world. There's more cars here per capita than anywhere else in the world last time I checked. Point is everyone virtually over the age of 16 owns at least one car. So you look at that audience as massive, but that doesn't mean everyone's going to use detailing services. Here in Southern California, because it's such a massive market and we have a healthy disposable income, we've got a little money to spare or to spend on car detailing services. Hence, an oversaturated market. What I mean by that is I can show up to a parking lot, and if you're looking behind me, you'll see I'm working alongside another detailer. I can be in a parking lot and literally have 3 or 4 other detailers all within a business parking lot. It is not uncommon in my area. So that gets me to the point, what do you do with competition? Well, that comes into marketing and advertising and how you present yourself. Presentation is king. So for example, these guys, based on what I can tell, and I try to get him on video, but I think between his broken English and the fact that he's not the owner of the car or the company, I started asking him questions where he started getting nervous, because I started asking him about insurance, business license, and workman's comp. You start asking those kinds of questions and suddenly everyone wants to just flee the room. So let me draw a comparison and contrast, and this has to do with competition. If you're a beginner, you're gonna look around if you happen to find yourself in one of these moments and be like, oh my gosh, what if my customer comes out, starts talking to me, and then he sees that there's other detailers that he has to pick and choose from? What do? You go into panic mode. Well, you don't have to, because virtually every business comes down to relationships. The relationship that you establish with your customer. They're not necessarily just going to jump ship, because typically when you reduce things down to an oversimplification, which is the problem, is that you think, oh, my customer's automatically going to shop price. Well, guess what? If your customer is only shopping price, they're going to leave eventually anyways, because there's always going to be someone that comes into the picture with a lower price. So you need to eliminate that fear as much as possible. I know it's normal, so maybe the best you can do at the beginning is just accept that it's normal. So I get it. I live this not every day now, but I've lived this my entire experience. This is what comes down to, for example, I'll go into the contrast comparison. So yes, we are both essentially detailers. They wash cars, I do not wash cars. So there's a massive difference. And now you may be saying, well, how do you detail a car if you don't wash it? Well, that's a whole different video. If you actually go to my website, autofetishdetail.com, you can find the answer for yourself. So there's a difference there. I don't do any washing, I do detailing only. And I know every one of you that is watching this, if you're not already there, you likely want to get there. This is where you have to separate yourself and accept, hey, this is friendly competition. And how do you separate yourself from the friendly competition? Well, this is where marketing, advertising, presentation, communication skills, all those things I talk about in my videos come in. So another sharp contrast. These guys, looks like they have lined up about anywhere from 8 to 10 cars that they're gonna work through and wash. We showed up and worked on one truck, this truck. So what is the difference between our customer and all of those customers, that service and our service? So for example, this is where detailing comes in, communication comes in, presentation comes in. How do you elevate yourself above the competition so that the competition no longer actually represents competition to you? Here we have this truck. Now my customer is highly intelligent, highly OCD, and he has been asking me questions because I know him from the gym for about 2 years before he decided to sign on to the Auto Fetish experience. He bought this truck and no one else has touched it other than himself and us. Now this is the kind of guy that goes through and he will dissect every nuance of the truck. And because I have a trained eye, I can actually dissect the truck even further. For example, when he first came out, he said, "Hey Darren, is there anything you can do about the cowling right there at the windshield?" Which we already do anyways, and essentially that was just repeating what we've already talked about, because we treat all the back black trim, the side mirrors, the cowling, the running boards, and then there's a back plastic cap on the back bumper. So he's going through all that and I say, no big deal, no big deal, no big deal. He's very critical. So I then show him, like around these seams, dirt starts collecting in there that he does not get. While he has a very critical eye, it still has room to be developed. And this is where I show him. And in my ability to show him the dirt that builds up around here, which we have already taken care of, that builds trust with us or between us, because now I'm showing him stuff that he values and finds important. His eye just wasn't developed enough to see it. So you go behind these door handles and I am showing him this behind the door handles, how dirt will collect in there, and most people will leave that alone and just leave it as is. So this is how I present myself, and I distinguish myself from the competition. And once again, sorry for the background noise. Now let's take a look at the front end. He, at one time, before we even touched it for the very first time, he pointed out the water spots that were sitting on this grill, which we take care of automatically. But once again, this is where I'm starting to assess how critical his eye is. So when you view a grill from up here, you're gonna see stuff that's unique from this perspective, versus down here where suddenly now you can see up underneath and inside these grates here. Take this bumper for example, you've got the cap here, but how far do you go in there as far as detailing? How about the license plate frame? This would be the obvious, but I've seen endless guys totally miss the license plate or the license plate frame. Never mind underneath here of this front chin spoiler. That needs to be treated as well. So this is the difference, and this is the sharp contrast. I don't know what, at the end of the day, those guys are gonna make per hour. Probably not that much. But here we have a guy that is willing to essentially pay 150 to 200 bucks an hour for our level of expertise, experience, and attention to detail. So it's not just about nailing the details, it's the whole experience. Communication skills. I speak English, he speaks English. America was founded on English speaking, it was colonized on an English speaking basis. So, and I know I'm gonna get some backlash for this, but the point is how can you communicate with someone if you're limited on your ability to speak the very language in which your customer speaks? So that's where I have an advantage. If I was an immigrant and I came to this country, I would have to accept that disadvantage. But those are all skills that I call the intangibles that will set you apart with your competition. So in the event something like this happens to you, that's where you apply some introspection and say, wait a minute, what separates me from them? How can I separate myself, deliver the full package, therefore charge more, and hopefully make more? Hopefully you guys learned something along the way. How's it going, guys?